On this episode, we talk to Mihir from Hyperion Superbikes in Pune on all your electrical woes, things that you can do to actually not get to where you are sitting on your bike trying to crank it and the bike doesn't want to switch on. Although you can see the display, you can hear the horn, but the bike doesn't want to switch on. So there are a few things that you can look at, do some simple little maintenance every 6 months or a year, and you should not be facing this then.
On the topic of electric woes, and why do bikes go through that? Is it sometimes maintenance? Is it the conditions that we are riding it? And we said let's have a chat with you about it and see what your things are. So welcome again, and go for it.
Yeah, as is with all modern bikes, the battery is the heart of them because you don't have a kick to start the bike. You use the starter motor.
Yeah.
They're fuel injected, so having a healthy battery and a good electrical system where everything works is paramount. Well, when it comes to maintaining it, for the most part, you can just get away by just keeping the bike clean and parked away from moisture, which is a little difficult to do in cities like Mumbai, which are along the coast. But here in Pune, it's not so much of a problem. So if you look at the battery, all the power from the battery goes through the wiring harnesses to the various components. So when you think about starting the bike, the battery terminals are first connected to the solenoid, which when you press the starter motor, the solenoid activates and then it turns the starter motor. That's what's going to make your bike crank. Now, usually what happens is if you think your bike's not going to start when you press the starter, it's usually related to these few components. So either your battery is weak, maybe the terminals have corroded, the solenoid could be spoiled, again due to corrosion. If the bike doesn't start, don't keep forcing it because something can get, like especially with solenoids, on a weak battery, if you keep starting it, you're going to make the solenoid go bad very quick. So what we usually say is keeping things clean is the easiest way of preventing such problems. But if you know you are going to ride in salty areas along the coast, you do get dielectric grease sprays. Wood makes a good one, Maxima does it well. So you can always use electrical contact cleaner, make sure the area is clean and then spray it on with that. Most of the time, keeping it clean is good enough, and you can spray on the terminals, connection points, relays, the solenoid, even certain points where the starter motor wiring connects. So depending on the bike that you have, certain components are positioned in the bike in such a way that when you go for a wash, they're more susceptible to having water collect there or getting rusted, depending on where that component is positioned. Know your bike well, know where water tends to stagnate, and just after your daily wash or pressure wash, make sure that water doesn't collect in those electrical component points. That's something that's it could take you a long way with your electrical system.
Yeah. So this system, as somebody who's using a bike, I know regular maintenance doesn't cover it. Like if I take it to a company, if I take it to an OEM, they're not going to cover it. If I'm doing it myself, how often do you think these are to be done?
So again, it depends a lot on where you live and how you ride your bike and where you take it. If you're in a city like Pune, you're quite safe with corrosion. It's only if where you stay, it has borewell water or hard water and you're constantly washing your bike, that's when you could face corrosion issues. But for the most part, if you're using corporation water, which is fairly soft, you shouldn't have any issues, and you could just go through 3-4 years of ownership without having to do anything specific. That being said, if you do start seeing rust, the best thing is to take out an electric contact cleaner, a small wire brush, and get rid of it as soon as you see it. Yeah. Because rust is like cancer. Once it starts, it spreads everywhere, and then electric components are not cheap. So you're going to end up having to replace parts or face reliability issues if that's what happens.
Yeah. So I wanna come back to the terminals part, and I think there's a thought there, which is corroded terminals. Do they pass current as they're supposed to, or they reduce current from a battery?
Right. So usually when you see a terminal that's corroded, it's only corroded on the surface, and it still has a good contact where the wire and the terminal meet. That being said, if that corrosion gets worse, that's when you're going to lose contact between those two parts. So the best way to do it is, once you see corrosion, you can either use electrical contact cleaner, use a little bit of sandpaper, get rid of the rust, and then if it continuously starts getting corroded, you can always use a little bit of grease or spray to ensure that that doesn't recur. Many terminals are usually brass plated, or they have some sort of coating, which is a sacrificial layer which over time gets worn out to then reveal the raw steel at the bottom. So again, if you see that that sacrificial layer has started deteriorating, then it's time to replace it with some sort of spray which will help protect.
Yeah. So these are things that happen over time. What are the things that are human inflicted, if I may ask you? Because there are things that people do to their bikes.
Right. So one thing that here at Hyperion we just say no to is fitting any accessories by cutting wires. These are all expensive bikes, and they come with accessories that are specially made for the bike, where you don't have to cut the wires, especially when you're installing electrical components like fog lights, chargers, etc. So definitely never cut your wire to install an accessory. If it requires cutting the wire, don't install it, because you're putting the entire electrical system at risk by having a small area where you can have a short. And if you, like, let's say for example, there are times when, especially times like now, where we're having a lot of rats chewing away at wires, leaving them naked, and then they short. It may not be anywhere close to where that short is. The problem could be somewhere very far away, and if it ends up affecting your relay box or the ECU, you're basically looking at an expense of 1 lakh plus.
Yeah.
So definitely accessories which require cutting, say no to them. You do get a lot of accessories like say Mad Dog lights are fairly affordable. They come with its own wiring harness where you don't need to, it's plug and play, you don't need to cut anything. On the bigger bikes like BMW, you get the easy scan, they work well. So definitely don't skimp when it comes to fitting accessories, don't cut wires. That's something that you should just stay away from.
Yeah. So are these entry points for water and corrosion? And is that what you're looking? Is that what we're looking at this program?
So it's these become entry points for sure, because you're opening the wiring system up to the elements. Corrosion will generally just lead to that component not working because you don't have electrical contact. But what's worse is when you get water, you're creating a path for conductivity where it may not connect the two wires that need to be connected. It may connect a positive and negative to each other, and that's how you get a short. So if that happens, you're basically looking at shorting anything from your battery to a small electrical component, which then needs to be replaced, because once it shorts, it's burning up, and then you need to replace it, and it's not going to work anymore.
So if I go back to the things that are there under your electrical maintenance, if I have to say that. So you said battery terminals, any terminals that are there on the solenoid, the starters. Is the fuse box also a part of which needs to be cleaned up?
So it depends on the bike that you're using. Certain fuse boxes are well located where they're far away from anywhere that water can get to them. Usually under the fuel tank, they look behind fairings, under the seat. So if you have a fuse box that's open and it's at a point where it can get splashed with water a lot, you don't need to remove each fuse. You just need to spray some electrical contact cleaner over it, let it dry out, and then that should be fine.
Yeah.
As far as possible, try not to remove fuses unless required, because every time you do remove the fuse, a little bit of material gets scraped off, and that, again, speaking about the sacrificial layer that protects the fuse, that comes off. So you're allowing it to start getting corroded by removing these terminals.
Yeah. There's another question that I had, and it's a more topical thing, which is on your controls, your lever controls, the switches, the ignition switch that you have. There are terminals there as well,
Right.
and are those also susceptible to not having contact? Is
Yeah,
that
so the starter switch isn't really open to the elements from the outside the way the turn signal switch is. So that generally tends to be pretty safe, but you could always open up the starter switch. It's generally a part of the kill switch assembly, spray on some WD-40 or contact cleaner, and that does help protect it. Every single service, your technician should be cleaning the turn signal because that does get corroded very easily. And once it's corroded to a point where it loses contact, then you're looking at replacing the whole switch assembly, which is again not cheap. So it's a very small precaution that can be taken, and it goes a long way.
Yeah, good. So I think the takeaway from this podcast is one, keep your electricals clean, and the second one is never touch a wiring harness, the main wiring harness for sure.
Don't cut the wiring harness.
Don't cut the wiring harness. So if there's a provision for that accessory, use that provision.
Yeah.
Otherwise, directly line it up to the battery with a relay. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there another tip? Any other tip for electricals, or do you think this should be a good class for people to work on?
No, I think preventive maintenance is always best when it comes to anything. But really, when it comes to electrical accessories, use quality accessories. Don't put something that's not meant for your bike. And remember, the wiring system is only as strong as its weakest point. So if you're putting in something that's not high quality, that's where the problem is going to start.
Yeah.
And you're introducing all sorts of problems, and there's going to be gremlins hiding in your bike for the rest of
Got
its,
it.
usable period.
Cool. Always a pleasure to have you. This there's a lot of knowledge that you have, which we love to put it out there. So thanks again, man. Thanks for listening to this podcast. I want to hear your stories, your motorcycle experiences, what you've been doing, and how motorcycles have made your life better. So if you have something to say, DM us on Instagram, and I'll be more than happy to get you on this podcast.